So if your children are spending long periods in their room, it's probably a bad sign. Isolation's never good for a child. They keep the door closed. They don't want to be bothered. They use excessive amounts of paper towel or tissue. You know they're sad because that boy Levit's dying. They're cleaning up those tears. And then the general look of fear of anger if you open the door without knocking. That's a really bad sign. You really need to keep an eye on your children. Make sure they're not gooning too hard, okay? So, things that they're doing things on their phone that you don't understand. Dan, you're ruining a public service announcement, Dan.
Welcome to the Cable Club. We're a retro video gaming podcast where three guys double slash, and we're linking up to talk about the games you love and rank them. We're your hosts. I'm Steve.
I'm Dan.
And I can't believe how close my face feels to this computer. I'm Don.
I'm just surprised they invited me back after what happened last time.
And everybody, welcome back, Chef Doug. This is episode number 30. This week's episode is our fourth league episode of the season, and the entry is Legend of Dragoon, submitted by our very own Chef Doug. So get ready to upload data from us to you, but first, boys, let's set the mood. And it's summertime. You can smell the fresh-cut grass and the moisture in the air, feel all that warm, bright sun basking over. You and a couple of your very close friends are all outside playing your Game Boys and talking about your adventures through Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. Your young mind begins thinking about all of the video game adventures that you and all of your friends ended up enjoying. The conversation turns into a topic on the genre that you just started to get acquainted with. RPGs. This is a much more grown-up tone of gaming than you're so far used to, but it's some of the most exciting. You and all of your friends decide to go inside and play some PlayStation. This was the RPG system of the time. There were so many to choose from. Final Fantasy, Suikoden, Breath of Fire, Legend of Mana, Xenogears, Lunar, Star Ocean, the list goes on. You couldn't wait to experience all the storytelling to unfold. You pick up one of your friend's PlayStation magazines, and you start to thumb through it. Something flashy catches your eye. A red armored hero with spiky blonde hair. You start reading through the article, and something just captivates you about this upcoming game. Dragons, magic, swords, and monsters. Everything that your young mind was excited to explore. Knowing that your birthday was right around the corner, you knew exactly what you were going to ask for. Another new experience, another new world, and another new story to unfold. With that being said, Don, do you have any announcements?
I do have some announcements for us. The first is, said it before, but I think this is kind of a start in its own, because we have been doing the Cable Club League for the last 3 episodes. This is our first Cable Club League episode. We're actually taking a submission from a guest. So, we're going to be doing this all year, 25 games in total, because we do new episodes every 2 weeks, and we're going to be ranking them basically every week going forward. So I think we have most of the year filled up. We still have a couple slots left. If you, listener, you are interested in coming on an episode and talking about a game of your choice and how it would be a good selection to win this year's Cable Club League, then go ahead and write us in at thecableclubpodcast@gmail.com, or better yet, head over to our Discord and join up there and hang out with us and talk with us about the games that we're playing and just become part of this awesome community. And what you get for participating, if you are a content creator, this matters to you, is that you'll get an itty-bitty little logo that's on the cover of the game you pick that'll sit on our Cable Club League list all year. and you'll see it every time toward the end of an episode. You'll also get a spot on our website when that's up and running, where you'll be a permanent honorary member of the Cable Club, and people will be able to kind of see you from there. So hey, free SEO. Which leads into my next announcement, which is our website. It's not up yet, but it is coming. It'll be coming, I think, before the end of the year. We should be able to get that going. And it'll be your hub for everything Cable Club Central, like announcements, new episodes, guest spots, communication, all that sort of thing. Not free SEO. Finally,
Don doesn't like when things come too quickly.
Yeah, I also don't like things when they cost too much. We also got over 100 subs.
Finally!
Yeah, triple.
When are you gonna start building up some DOMs?
Right. I think there's only so many DOMs allowed, but anyway. That means that we have a bonus episode on the way of a mystery topic. We will not reveal it yet, but that bonus episode will be coming up shortly, and we will announce it when it is available, if you don't catch it on a stream. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get into question of the week. Kick it over to Dan.
Alrighty. Alright, so celebration of the 30th anniversary of the PS1. What is your favorite game from Sony's debut console and why?
I think what hurts most about this question is that realizing this console came out when I was 5.
I know.
It feels like I was older.
It was released in Japan before America, so you were a little bit older.
Wasn't it still released the same year?
I don't think so. I think it might have been a year off.
So if this was the 30th anniversary. Yeah. Okay.
I know I didn't get the PS1 until a bit later. I think I was like around like 9 or 10. I don't know.
It was 3rd of December in Japan in 94, but it was September 9th. It was almost a whole year later in North America.
My household's first 3D system was the N64, so I really didn't get to experience much PS1 until a little bit later. But I have to say, just like in general, before we get into answering, I feel like Sony really slammed onto the scene with this console. Like, I feel like they really did a great job. Like Dreamcast, what? Good job. I know I'm gonna hate for saying that, but
well, I mean, I think one of the appeals to Sony was their library, right?
Yeah,
like
100%.
They stole Final Fantasy from Nintendo. I mean, not really, but like Nintendo just up and decided, made a really bad bet with the N64 that like, hey, we're just not going to do RPGs. You know? And like PlayStation just took it all. And they went that like realism route. They really appealed to an older crowd. I also think Crash Bandicoot's really sweet. Like if you're looking for a Mario comparison for that time, I think Crash Bandicoot does a pretty good job.
Yeah, the first couple games that I remember were Crash Bandicoot and probably Spyro on the console. I knew somebody that owned a PlayStation. They were a family friend, and those are the two games that they had. So
yeah.
They had that like competing thing for the mascots. It was like the console of many mascots. For me, I think Crash Bandicoot is the PlayStation 1's official mascot. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Yeah, I probably would go with that.
Crash Bandicoot or
He was in the most
Spyro.
commercials, right?
Yeah, like I don't know, something about him just gave me the he's Sony's Mario kind of feeling.
Well, like the real funny part about it is that like Sony doesn't even own the character; it's a Naughty Dog character. So it just seems weird to me looking back,
Yeah. Didn't they have 3 on the PS1 of Crash Bandicoot?
They did. They were selling like hotcakes when it first came out.
And Crash Team Racing.
Mm-hmm. CTR. So I guess we'll stick with the question. We'll go with Doug first.
All right. Well, I'm going to windmill slam PlayStation Underground Jam Pack Demos Disc 4. Because I don't know if anybody has played this, but I'm not joking. I played this so freaking much. And not as a spoiler, but like this is how I got introduced to Legend of Dragoon. On this, they had an interview with the creators of Legend of Dragoon where they talk about the artistic direction they're trying to take it in, as well as it has a crazy lineup of games on it to play demos for. I'm trying to find where I wrote it down now.
He just like found a backdoor way to insert the game that he picked into the question of the week.
So the demos for this, Hot Shots Golf 2. So for me, my brother, my dad, and I would play Hot Shots Golf 2, the demo, until it was over, and then just reset it and play it again. Never bothered to buy the actual game. We just played the demo so freaking much. Medieval 3, which is another banger. Grind Session, Speed Punk, Siphon Filter 2, Tomba 2, NASCAR Rumble, Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man. That game is freaking awesome. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, and Legend of Dragoon. Tell me that's not just...
Yeah, it's a good lineup.
Anything that's pretty stacked, I would have to say. But as for, I guess would say for my, like, I would honestly bet I put more time into Tony Hawk's Pro Skater than pretty much any other game on the PlayStation 1. As much as I love RPGs, I would always play that with my brother, and special place in my heart. I know Pro Skater 2 is better, but I never had it. So I always played Tony Hawk's with my brother.
Yeah, there was actually a demo disc I played a lot as a kid too, now that I remember. I think it was called like Interactive, and it was, I want to say it was Volume 3. But it had like, I remember it had like Twisted Metal 2, Tomb Raider 2 I think was on there, Tekken. They had a couple random games on there. They had like a Madden game. I think a Crash Bandicoot was actually on there. Yeah, I mean, that's all I can really remember. But yeah, I played the crap out of that too. It was good times.
I feel like there used to be one with like Bloody Roar on it, and I feel like I remember going over to my friend's house and playing that. I don't know if you guys remember the Bloody Roar series, but like,
oh yeah, like the
like their animal forms. They would
I remember those, like this big ape that you could be, and like a giant like T-Rex or something.
There's definitely some furry awakening stories there, I feel like.
That makes me think of Primal Rage more than Bloody Roar. Bloody Roar, I think the cover of that, there's like a tiger guy. That's what I think of.
Tiger Daddy.
So was that your pick, Dan, or?
No. So I guess I'll go into my pick then.
Look, all right. Favorite after Mega Man Legends. All right, I'm just going to stop you right there.
Favorite after Mega Man Legends.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's going to be another Mega Man game.
It's
going to be
2.
Yeah, it's going to be Mega Man Legends 2. No. It's Mega Man X5. So I remember my father bought this for me like way back, and anytime I went over his house, it was the game that I would play for the weekend. And I remember I would put so many hours into Mega Man X5. I would do like only X runs and only 0 runs, and I would do like no armor X runs, and yeah,
Which
I
one
fell in love
was
with
that?
game.
What were the bosses? I can't remember.
So they had weird
McWhalen.
Yeah, Izzy Glow. Yeah.
Duff McWhalen.
Yeah. What's another one? Dizzy Glow or something.
Isn't it like
Shield
isn't his name
Sheldon?
like
No, that's 6.
That's six.
Eric the Red or something like that?
Axel the Red.
Axel the Red.
Yeah.
The rose guy.
Yeah.
They, actually that was my like one of my first Mega Man games I like ever played.
It's so good. That's such a good introduction into the series if that was the first one you played.
Like, I think I played Mega Man 2 with Steve a few times, and of course loved it, but like I had never played an X game, and I remember renting it and not knowing what Mega Man X was and playing that and being like, oh, it's like a side-scroller, like original Mega Man, but like way better.
Yeah.
And like that opening theme hits so hard. Yeah, play it here.
But it is definitely, I think that's Zero's theme that it actually plays from Mega Man X1 actually. It's just a remix.
Is it really?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna have to go back and compare that now. Go check your facts.
Was Rainy Turtleoid 6?
It was, yep.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was the first X game I ever played all the way through, and I'm 99% sure that you loaned it to me to play on PlayStation, Dan. Pretty sure.
Yeah, the first time I beat like Maverick Zero was like the first time I felt an adrenaline rush playing a video game.
Oh, and that like battle theme too. Oh, so good.
Oh yeah, it really gets you going.
Yeah, it's the one that's like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Only like it starts off and you know it's getting.
Yeah, I love the start of it. It's like.
This whole first segment of the podcast is just going to be us playing music clips.
Our podcast is now an a cappella group.
They really are. Doug, get the kazoo.
Get it.
Best kazoo rendition of Fated Battle, X versus Zero.
What you can't see off screen is my wife just looked at me like, you better not.
You can see his cats run. Steve, what's your favorite PS1 game?
So you guys probably all know what I'm going to say.
I do.
But Final Fantasy IX has been a staple in my life for a very long time. The first one that I played was 8, and I dabbled in 7 a little bit, but the first one that I really fell in love with, and it's still my favorite Final Fantasy non-MMO, is 9. And that game has everything that a Final Fantasy game should have been back then. It married the new and the old with Final Fantasy. There's tons of golden era Final Fantasy stuff in it, but they also harken back to a ton of the old stuff. So every Final Fantasy fan up to that point could get, a feeling of nostalgia playing this new game, and it holds up to this day. Uses classic Final Fantasy classes, and the score is incredible. The graphics are amazing. The story is very in-depth, and all of the characters, except for Amarant, are fleshed out really well. And then on top of all of it, it's 2-player.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I forgot about that. Yeah, you can have one. You can have each person control a couple of characters. That's actually
Great
a pretty
game.
cool feature.
Amazing. Like, it was the culmination of everything that Squaresoft was up to that point. The only other game, in my opinion, that rivals it on their catalog up to that point was Chrono Trigger. So that's my favorite PlayStation game.
Yeah, I really liked how like you were saying, like how it kind of like looks like the older Final Fantasies too. Like a lot of characters you get like kind of look like the job that they're representing. Like, you get Vivi as the Black Mage. Steiner kind of looks like a paladin.
It's not even just all that, though. They have tons of cameo characters, tons of reused bosses. They use the 4 elemental fiends from Final Fantasy IV. They have tons of like little Easter eggs that the other games had, but this game was a level above.
It was kind of a revert back to like Final Fantasy and how it was. Like they went like dark and gritty with, I feel like, 7 and 8.
And futuristic.
Yeah, and then they came back around to that more traditional feel of Final Fantasy, I guess.
Yeah, and that like setting is much more my speed than the steampunk futuristic stuff. I love the medieval setting.
Yeah, oh boy, my favorite PlayStation game. This is kind of a tough one because like I'm sure the library has bad games, but like I haven't played like too many of them.
Tell us why it's Tony Hawk.
Right? No, it's not. Tony Hawk is very good.
Darkstone.
Yeah, no, not that one. But I think it's probably Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped.
That's awesome.
I actually really love that game. It's a platformer's, magnum opus, really. Like it's just a dream, and like it kind of has that Donkey Kong-ish type of feel. I'd actually equate Crash Bandicoot to more like Donkey Kong, honestly, with like the way the platforming is set up and the overall challenge. But like it's not just about playing through the game once and beating it. There's time trials, there's collectathon trials. Like they do a bunch of stuff to mix up each level and also give you some semblance of like being able to 100% the game. Like it's just a step up from that traditional type of game that was more popular on the previous systems, the previous 2D systems.
Yeah, one of the things that I really, really like about Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped is I think they nailed the difficulty perfectly. Like, Crash 1 is a really challenging game. Crash 3, it was like the perfect level for me on difficulty. I played it a ton. It was the best of the 3.
I like the ride the animal levels where you're running away from something.
I remember riding on the Great Wall of China.
Yeah. You're traveling across time. I don't know if that game's aged all that well, but it's still.
I have the
great.
Crash Bandicoot remastered or whatever it is on the Switch, but I haven't really spent a lot of time on it. I've been busy playing the game of the 2 weeks because it just dumped 50
So
hours
long,
into it.
yeah.
It's a heavy lift.
Hey, nothing really seems to yank the chain of the internet more than that remake. Like, people are just mad that it exists. I don't know if it's bad. Have you tried it?
I played some of the first one, but not enough to.
Yeah, I have it on Steam, but like again, like my backlog is so huge. It's like I don't even know if I'll ever get to it. To be honest with you,
Ever.
Calling it my retirement log.
pretty much. It's like there's so many games I want to play, and it's just like I don't have the time.
Hey, I get bored in retirement. Pity.
Yeah, it's like people at work, they go, man, I get bored sitting at the house. I don't. I have way too much to do. Yes, I don't want the overtime. Send me to the house, please.
All right, so those are us, but how about you? All right, Doug, how do you say it? Relica?
Relica.
Help me out here. Okay.
You've
Good.
known her for how long?
I don't know her by her gamer tag. I don't call her that. All right.
Well, you
At
should.
a party, at New Year's party, just call her by her gamer tag.
Feel free to mispronounce my gamer tag too. Relica says Spyro, because who doesn't love a cute little gem hoarding dragon? I don't like the first game as much as I like subsequent games. I feel like they really fleshed it out and made it its own later. Like when he got like the different elemental breaths and stuff, I liked it.
I
Yeah.
like the first game.
You do?
I could ask
feel
her for
like
it's
clarification, but I
empty.
think she means Spyro in general.
Yeah. I'm just adding commentary there.
I just like how simple it is. There's not like none of the puzzles or like the collecting is really. It's a really comfortable game, cozy game, and that's something that I find very charming about it, and I like that.
Yeah, that was my sister's jam back in the day. That's what she played a lot on the PS1.
There is something to be said for, a game that you will beat with an acceptable level of challenge, I think. Not every game has to be Dark Souls to be
Yeah.
enjoyable.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty fun. Like the flying levels or like the flying challenges you had to do was pretty cool.
Yeah,
And then some of the bosses were pretty fun.
Right? Lobaka says ESPN Extreme Games, because who doesn't love violent street luge? He says,
I
think
remember that game.
He rented it several times when his family would rent a PlayStation for the weekend. It's one of the few PlayStation games he can think of, since he really only ever played the original PlayStation a handful of times. Doesn't remember having much access to it.
Yeah, if I remember right, like that game, like you said, you could do like a street luges, you could do like actual like bicycles, skateboards, probably other things that I'm missing, but like yeah, it was just basically like races with like all these like non-engine vehicles or whatever that you could like just go on.
It has ESPN in the title. I'm out.
Yeah, I just like this. The street luge was so broken because we were just so low to the ground. So like, like say like the guy on the skateboard trying to like punch you, he just like couldn't because we were just like laying down.
I
I feel
actually
like that's
dabbled.
something I played as a kid, like without a
Yeah.
PlayStation.
makes me
Yeah.
think of what's it, Road Rash on the Sega Genesis. You could punch and kick people.
Yeah,
Where like you get the club and you're trying to cave the person's skull in.
yeah.
It's so good.
I was that psycho. Like when you get thrown off your motorcycle, I just wouldn't go grab it. I would just run down the road without
Yeah.
my.
Road Rash, so good.
I'm just thinking, like, I played a ton of sports games on the PlayStation that are like not your traditional sports. I didn't really play basketball or hockey or anything like that, but snowboarding games, skateboarding games, like MTV snowboarding was my jam. And Steve Schritt made me think of it because they had Wendy Clear on that game, and I just looped that shit and go. Like, I love that. The game was sweet, man. That game was awesome.
Yeah,
There's
I didn't
this-
play that one.
There's this like
Sledstorm.
Bayou like racing game. I'm trying to think of like what it's called, but it's like you're like on these like jet bikes and you're racing through this like swamp. I'm trying to remember the name of it for the life of me.
Isn't it
But,
Jet
like,
Moto?
Basically,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah. It's Jet. It's Jet Moto, and like
Yeah.
I've heard that people don't like it, but it's got a mechanic that really interests me. In like you have this like grappling hook where like you have to hook on to poles to make tight turns, and then let it go at the right time so you're turning like correctly. That sounds awesome. As far
There
as
is
the racing
another
game.
retro gaming podcast that I listened to that did an episode on it, but I never played it.
but it sounds great. Like it's all like banjo tunes and stuff for the background.
Because of the bayou.
Yeah. Fun fact: I actually used Jet Moto gameplay when I did one of the intros, like our
Oh, I
first.
thought
Yeah.
that was Wave Race.
No, I think it was Jet Moto. That's why when he said it, that's why I was like, oh yeah, that's what it was, because I remember like picking that game. I just couldn't remember the name for the life of me.
Oh man. Next answer. Lycianthia says, I didn't have a PS1 during its time, but a couple games I now enjoy are Legend of Mana, Chrono Cross, Mega Man Legends, and but Mega Man Legends gets a pass because it was an N64 version. Hard disagree. I think the N64 version had less voiceovers, therefore it's worse. But,
And the music was pretty mitified. It's like very compressed.
Definitely had better textures though. If you watch side by side silent game footage, it's easy to see the appeal. Yeah, I'm not really surprised there. I know Lycianthia to be a big RPG guy, so the PlayStation 1 was his jam. He just missed it. Danko Misty says, Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories.
Oh man.
I don't know
Oh
this
man. Oh, getting bodied by frickin' meteor dragons.
Everybody, you mean? Like, because the rules of that game don't make sense. If
You feel really cool because you
at all.
drop a Gate Guardian somehow after grinding the materials throughout the game, and then all of a sudden drops Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon without fusion summoning and just wipes the floor with you.
Yeah, so did you guys ever play this one, Dan and Steve?
I know.
But have you both played Yu-Gi-Oh? You kind of get the idea of the rules?
Very little.
Well, good. It's nothing
I
like that.
I know the old Yu-Gi-Oh
Yeah.
game.
All right, yeah, just throw that out. So basically, it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Monsters, and like how you play this game is you pick the cards in your hand, and then you press go, and it fuses them together or doesn't, and whatever happens happens. And the combat is similar to Yu-Gi-Oh! And if you're
Sounds
good,
awesome.
you memorize the good things that happen, because good things don't always happen.
So it actually is a relatively popular speed run, and one of the speedrunners, I loved the way he talked about it. So they do this crazy RNG manipulation where they count frames and they like time it to the music so they can like get meteor black dragons to try to get to the end of the game as quickly as possible. And this guy, and I'm not kidding, refers to getting a 2-piece and a biscuit. It's like, boys, we got the 2-piece, we gotta get the biscuit, and then he gets the third one. Oh, we got the 2-piece and the biscuit. That's awesome.
I like how some of those people beat like the first boss you're not supposed to beat. There's like this guy, because it's like all supposed to be like Egyptian lore, fake Egyptian lore, and like he takes over your person's kingdom, and his name's Hessian, and he's got like all the most busted cards, so he just like breaks you like the first time you run across him. But like these speedrunners just like roll them over because they RNG those ridiculous cards from the very beginning.
I love when speedrunners find ways to beat supposed to lose fights, and then the script after acts as if you lost.
I think his script is just like ... Like I think he's like speechless, and then he has a different dialogue when he sends you into the future.
They must have
and starts-
expected you to
starts the
cheat,
plot.
maybe.
Good times. All right, that is question of the week down. You guys ready to enunciate all of our attacks? Get into the game.
Volcano!
All right, Doug, your game, your overview. Kick us off.
All right, so I'd like to start this off a little bit different because, as we know, games can be addictive, and when you're dealing with immersive worlds and like in-depth storytelling, people can be addicted. So I really wanted to just share how to tell if your kids are addicted to playing The Legend of Dragoon, or as it's referred to on the street, gooning.
So for those of you listening audio, there's an actual slideshow in front of us. Go check us out on YouTube to see the slideshow.
So, if your children are spending long periods in their room, it's probably a bad sign. Isolation's never good for a child. They keep the door closed. They don't want to be bothered. They use excessive amounts of paper towel or tissue. You know they're sad because that boy Levit's dying. They're cleaning up those tears. And then the general look of fear of anger if you open the door without knocking. That's really bad sign. You really need to keep an eye on your children. Make sure they're not gooning too hard, okay? So, things that they're doing things on their phone that you don't understand. Dan, you're ruining a public service announcement, Dan. Number 2, they're doing things on their phone you don't understand. They're extremely defensive of their phones. They don't want you to look at their phone. They have strange apps on their phone that you just don't recognize. And they get annoyed when you ask about those strange apps on their phone that you don't recognize. And they tell you that you're uncool for asking about the strange app on the phone that you don't recognize. And I'm still cool, young, and hip and have my full life ahead of me. I think you're the one being uncool by not telling me about the strange app on your phone that I don't recognize. And then how can you tell if your kids are secretly texting each other about... I can't make it through this, dude. Secretly texting each other about gooning. They might say something like WTG, which, as we all know, stands for want to goon. GTG, gotta goon. GG, gonna goon. LOL, goon. We're not gonna... Lots of Legend of Dragoon, of course. FTW, which of course stands for Fueno Tunnel Water Dragon. We all know that. Like, if the kids are texting it, they've made it to disc 2. They've made it through the Queen Fury and the Ghost Ship, and they've encountered the dragon.
Oh, absolutely. That was my first guess.
Which is a really, really bad thing, because that means they're already on disc 2, and that's a lot. LMAO. Anybody take a crack what this one means?
Legend of Mana ain't on it.
Look, Maru is actually one of the remaining Winleys. Of course, that's what they mean. Like, they already have made it to the point where they have the big reveal that Maru's a Wingley.
And she's
FFS. Final Fantasy VII is not a better game than Legend of Dragoon. See also, Final Fantasy sucks.
Oh, boy.
Or SMDH.
Throwing shade.
SMDH, which of course stands for Sieg is possessed by Nobu Frama, and it's Dart's biological father. Haschel is secretly Dart's grandfather. Like, so they're sending each other spoilers. It's not cool. Kids, really got to be careful when we're going out there gooning.
Hold on. You say Sieg. I thought it was with a Z. Zieg.
I thought it was Sieg. Maybe I don't know.
It's
I don't know.
Z.
I'm doing a bit, Dan. Let me do a bit. Let me do a bit.
Completely ruined him.
All right, so you need to protect yourself from the dangers of gooning, and this is where editor Dan cancels Doug off the show. Because
once you goon, you can't revert. What's the first picture? Is that Levitz?
Yeah.
What the fuck's the middle one, dude? Dude, okay, so like, I don't want to tell you what I googled to find this, but you can only imagine. Like, I didn't Google it. I binged it. If we're being honest, but yeah, no, it's Levitz, Dart, Miranda. Shayna hanging out with Miranda, and then Rose practicing her flexibility. So
riding on her dragon, Michael.
Yeah. She's not, but I wish. Oh my god.
Oh boy.
So
that was a what the hell? Michael?
That's
a random name.
Okay. Anyway, a little bit of an overview. Legend of Dragoon starts you off in a civil war. You are the main character, Dart, who is returning home from a long journey. And as you are on your way home, you're attacked by a dragon. You are saved by a passing adventurer who might come back later on in the story. And you realize that...
Dart sure hopes so.
Yeah, your home village is being burned to the ground. And that's the start of the journey. It's a game I really enjoy. I'm sure we'll discuss more plot points, but PlayStation 1, I have some information here.
No, I think it's 2001.
It was released in December 1999 in Japan and in the United States. I got it right here. All right,
this is why I win the anniversary game.
So the Legend of Dragoon started off as a really small project. It had a very small team. It was developed by Japan Studio, and they had a $14 million budget, which sounds like a lot, but compared to Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VII was a $40 million project, Final Fantasy VIII was a $30 million project, and Final Fantasy IX, $40 million. So relatively small budget to develop this game.
That's Squaresoft.
The director,
money.
the director Yasuyuki Hasibe was also the director for the Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. And then he kind of just disappeared off the face of the earth. He did this, one other game, I can't remember what it was, and Super Mario RPG, and just vanished. There's actually was a mystery on Reddit you could follow where people were trying to figure out where this guy was or what ended up happening to him. Because this has developed a fan, like a cult following where a lot of people want a remake. They had a petition for a remake or for a sequel, and it garnered 30 million, not 30, couldn't be 30 million, 30,000 signatures for people that wanted to see another one going. So this game was released in December of 1999, and then again in I did not write the month, but it was either June or July of 2000 for the United States. So, June.
I think that more so than a sequel, I think I would rather see just straight up an anime, like a Netflix anime adaptation. I'm not joking.
No, dude, I want another game.
Dude, it'd be so awesome.
You know what would be sick? Having a prequel of the original Dragoons.
Yeah, don't give me a sequel. Give me the Dragon campaign. Give me that lore, baby.
Yeah, that'd be kind of neat. Too.
What I would like is have a prequel, you know, with like modern graphics, whatnot, and then remake Legend of Dragoon like after that.
So
I think if it got the remake treatment, I feel like it would be like an ARPG. And I feel like based on your button presses, you would do the additions. I think that'd be a really neat
I
thing.
definitely could see Legend of Dragoon, like how like Final Fantasy VII got that treatment. I could see Legend of Dragoon like fitting more into that, just because of like, you know, I just picture like you like transform into a Dragoon, you could start like flying and then like slashing your sword. That would be so sick,
It'd
dude.
be so awesome. Which, you know, kind of leads me into one of the things that I really find appealing about this game is like you know, back in these days, I was like really into like Dragon Ball Z and like the transformations and Power Rangers and their transformations, and I think just like the idea that you have these RPG characters that you can just go like a super mode whenever, you know, not whenever you feel like, but most of the time, right? Like I think is pretty core to what I liked as a kid.
This game had a lot going on, so
especially design wise, right?
It's
like
so as far as the actual like setting and all that. All of the environments are pretty well varied. They put a tremendous amount of detail into their backgrounds. If you go into one house and then you go into the house that's right next to it, it's a completely different layout inside. It's very rarely that you'll find one building be the same as the next. So they put a lot of attention into that detail.
Unless it's one of those buildings that has a bunch of entrances, but you see like the entire building and it's sectioned off in like 8 sections.
Oh yeah, like Lohan.
Yeah, Lohan.
But only Lohan does that. Lohan's the only area in the game that does something like that. So
yeah, where it's like that big vertical building and it's all the different rooms.
guess, but they do it in multiple places in that town though. It's not just one. There's like 2 buildings, and then on top of that, like the castle in the castle that Albert has or whatever, it does something similar to that too. It's different than the way that other RPGs at the time did their layouts.
I think they were really going for something very cinematic with this game and with the story. Just like the way it opens up, that first cutscene, the music going on in the background during the dialogue. I think they were really trying to create a spectacle with this game more than anything else. I think they put a lot of effort into the artistic direction. Again, I think that is really what's front and center when you play through this game, is the story, the characters, the dialogue, and the just character design. Like, I think, isn't Dart's armor and like Rose's armor and Levitz's just like regular armor, not the Dragoon armor, like as far as fantasy designs go, isn't it so sweet? Like, I think their designs are awesome.
Yeah, I think it was you that said it, Don, is like the colors that they don too, like obviously like Levitz's green, Haschel's like purple. I think you said that they were like the Power Rangers.
Like Power Rangers,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, true story, in the development of the game, initially, one of the concept arts for Rose had Rose with green hair. One of the design choices they made was to make her like dark black hair, and then they wanted, in order for people to identify all the characters kind of with their own elements, that's why Dart's red, he's the red Dragoon. Levitz is green, Albert's green, they're the green Dragoon. And that was part of the whole thing. And it was so basically you could tell and differentiate your parties a little better, but also in your save screens. I don't know if it necessarily panned out to be the greatest decision, but because who knows, like some of those concept arts could have been breathtaking, but we won't know now unless they somehow resurface. It might be lost media at this point.
I think it's subtle, right? Like, it's not super overt that that's what's going on in the game. It's funny to look back on now, but I think one of the problems with the time was that these 3D games only slightly resembled what they were trying to actually create. You know, they were very polygonal, made up of polygons, right?
Whenever we talk about
this... The faces were so messed up, right? Like,
whenever we talk about this, I always go to that
helps.
meme, man. Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah.
You're the handsomest guy at this party.
So, like, I think it really helps the characters stand out from one another that they are all different colors.
Yeah.
And that, you know, no one really looks like anybody else. So.
And there's a lot of attention to detail, so the backgrounds are pretty detailed. Good and bad, they gave you a reason to explore the environment, so that with the system of Stardust. So in the game, there's a massive collectible known as Stardust, and you turn them into a wandering woman named Martel, who is looking for them for her to help her sick child. And every 10 you give her, she gives you an item, and they can be located anywhere. They're not seen on the game. You can't see anything that shows that they might be there. You basically have to go around and explore things. And you can...
I wish that wasn't the case. I wish they put exclamation marks.
I think... So there's another parts of the game where you're... I would agree with you, because there's parts of the game where you're trying to find something and it shows a little glint on the screen of like, hey, there's something here, or hey, you should go look over here. I don't understand why they couldn't have done that with the Stardust. I think that would have been great. There are a lot of situations where you can interact with things in the world and you might get an interaction. So, for example, one of my favorite ones, I sent a screenshot, I think, to all of you guys when I was playing. You can go to the campfire, and Dart looks at the campfire and he goes, oh, man, this campfire really gets me in the mood to do it. And it says "do it" in quotes, and you're just like, "What? Like, what? If you didn't look at that fireplace, you would have missed that." And like, part of me wonders how much more things like that are in this game, where it was just somebody having a laugh at the translation and just messing with it. And that was one of my favorites. Honestly, it was.
I want to
really
pause
funny.
on doing it for a second. Hold on.
On gooning.
Do like every character. Every character in this game cannot deal with the fact that Dart and Shauna have a perfectly platonic and healthy relationship. They are like your in-laws or your future in-laws when you were dating your now wife telling you to get married. It's like that level bad. Like basically every time the two characters are together, somebody has to make a snide comment to Dart why he's not jumping on that. And he's just like, I don't know, I just don't want to. Like I've had my whole life to jump on it and I'm just not.
Yeah. Like, Levitz and Haschel are pretty bad when it comes to that.
He's just not into it, dude. Leave him alone.
So I've heard Legend
And
of
then
Dragoon.
Peru is like super perverted and always wants to know what's going on and hiding behind walls and stuff.
Her and Haschel. I'm trying to learn about love. What are you doing, old man?
Reliving, gooning.
Dude, I love that term.
Have you Urban Dictionary it yet? Because if you haven't, you might wanna.
But like, yeah. So, I think one of the things that it's a 4-disc game. What did you guys think of like the actual separation of the disc? Because like this was Steve's first time playing it, and Dan, was this your first time playing it too?
No, I think it's like my third time beating it. For some reason, I don't know why. I thought the fourth disc was just the moon segment only. But then, because I remember like Steve was like wondering the lengths of the discs, and I told him that like, yeah, the first 3 discs are pretty, about the same, and the fourth disc is short. but that's not the case. The fourth disc is probably actually the longest because it's like you get all like the side content, like the extra dragoons that you can fight, and fighting Magician Faust and stuff like that. I would say like the first disc is probably the second longest. I would say 2 and 3 are about the same, and then the fourth is definitely the meatiest.
I spent the longest on the fourth disc in my first playthrough, and part of that was mastering the additions left on my main characters, but that was only about an hour and a half of time. But it felt like it went on for a really long time, the final disc.
Yeah, I did let you know that when I got on there. I was like, never mind, Steve. This one's you're in for a ride for disc 4.
I mean,
Yeah, Steve, do you want to explain additions? Because I feel like you're probably the least biased out of all of us because we've all played this game the most. Like, can you explain to people who've never played this game what additions are?
Okay, yeah, sure. So, in this game, every character except for Shauna and Miranda have something called additions. And in the menu, you select the addition that you want to use. And it is the only addition that you can use in battle until you change it. You gain more additions by leveling your character's main level up, not their Dragoon levels. And they all have different attributes based on the character that you are. Like elemental, but they also have different modifiers for either SP or damage percentage. SP fills up your Dragoon gauge, which we'll talk about more later, and damage is obvious, how much extra damage it does on your regular attack. When you use an addition, every 20 times you successfully do it, it levels up to a final level of 5, and in battle, additions, they show up on your attacks. So whenever you choose to just physically attack something, the addition shows up. It's like a timed mini game in a way, almost like if you listen to Paper Mario, like it's like Action Command. So it's either going to be blue for the X button and you have to time it right, or it's going to be circle if you get counterattacked. And the number of additions that you do correctly in a row, or action commands in a row, you gain more SP in the battle and you do more damage. But the only way to level an addition up is to get all of them timed perfectly in a row.
It's usually like from 1 to, I'd say like maxes out at like what, 8?
7?
Is probably the highest.
I think it's 7.
Yeah, 7. Yeah. So like they're basically attack chains, and they're just fun animations. And then your character, like in jest, this is one of my favorite parts about the game. They like have to exclaim their attacks.
So let's just get this out of the way now. Let's just address the elephant in the room. Someone said this, and I think it's very true. This game is a playable 90s anime. It's got all the tropes. It's got the people yelling their attacks. This is basically
I'm telling you, it's a Netflix anime. Yeah. We really, really need the Netflix anime adaptation. You got to make it a little bit more violent, for us adult viewers. You got to put some swearing in there. It's perfect.
Do you guys have any?
Burst!
So, as I was leveling my additions, my wife was sitting next to me, and I was working on Perky Step. So, and everyone knows Maru's voice is first of all obnoxious, but also it's like Perky. Yeah, it sounds like Joey Wheeler as a female toddler.
Everybody knows.
So Maru's voice sounds like if Joey Wheeler was a 30-year-old man's idea of a 3-year-old girl. Like trying to say, like, I don't even know how to describe it. But she says, Perky Step. And my wife turns to me and goes, she's saying Turkey Step? I said, no, Perky. She goes, it sounds like turkey.
Perky. Take away from that what you will. But I will say about the character designs in this game that, 1999 was like around the time that we got like, the first Daredevil movie and everything was edgy and, some of these designs really kind of fit the time. And this character, Maru, that Doug is talking about is basically, I'd estimate, 20% dressed.
Yeah. That's pretty bad.
Yeah. And 16 years old.
Is she, though? Because she turns out to be a Wingly. Isn't she older?
I don't know. I don't know if it's 16 in human years or wingly year. I don't.
It's
I really don't know.
obviously, whatever it ends up being or being translated into, it's obviously an excuse to put a 16-year-old in nothing, basically. It's just a really weird
It's
thing.
a different time,
That's
guys. Move on.
But, if you can look past that, right, the other character designs are pretty great.
So, who wants to explain a little bit about Dragoons in lore and in battle?
I can take a stab at it.
Yeah, go for it.
So, I'll handle for now the mechanics of a Dragoon. So, as Steve was saying, like you have certain additions, and you have to complete these additions. And the more hits you do in successions with your additions, you get a resource called SP. And what the SP does is it fills this gauge that levels up to 5 eventually, and you need 100 SP to get a full level of a Dragoon for a turn.
I believe SP is also how you level up the
Dragoon. And I was about to get to that. Yeah. So there's a hidden EXP modifier that you can't see.
Why is it hidden?
Yeah. That's something that should have been on like the end of the battle screen, like your Dragoon level. But anyway, so yeah, the more hits you land on your additions, the more SP you accumulate, you eventually, get levels on your Dragoon. And like I said, it caps out at 5. At first, it's pretty easy to level, but I know from like 4 to 5 is pretty hefty. So, if it's like your first time going through the game, I would recommend trying to stick with like characters that you really want to play, because if you're like mixing and matching, a lot of the time you'll get like lower additions, like levels and Dragoon levels. So I would recommend first time playing just stick with like 3 characters. As far as like the lore, basically they're like these Dragoon spirits. They're like little orbs, and the orbs themselves, they like gravitate towards a person that's kind of like has the affinity for that like element. So obviously, like say Dart, for example, he's like fire attribute. It was like a memento from his father, which was passed down to him. Well, like he found it because his father like died. Eventually, it got woken up through Rose, actually, which is like the first actual Dragoon that you see. So I don't really understand that part of it. I don't know if like any of you guys do. I don't know why it was like dormant inside Dart until.
Okay, so what do we want to go from?
So let me add to it, right? So in the beginning of the game, you can't turn into a Dragoon.
Right.
Like so the Dragoon form is like this special armor with these wings, right? And your character has like glowing weapons and stuff, and they're flying, and it's this cool like super form looking thing in the game. That's like visually how it looks. You can't do it at the beginning of the game, and it's a good long while before you even hear about what they are, right? So you meet a character in, I think it's like Albert's Castle, who's well versed in like the old lore, and basically tells you that 11,000 years ago there was this war. There were these people called Winglies who pretty much had dominion over all of Earth because they had real magical power, and I guess nobody else did, or didn't have anything that could stand up to them. Does he say where the Dragoon spirits actually come from?
We're talking about Noish. Minister Noish.
Yeah, or like, do we ever learn where the Dragoon like orbs, the spirits themselves, actually come from?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you get it from the
dragon.
The dragon.
Yeah, you basically cut into the eye after you've slayed the dragon, and you pull the spirit out. And Lloyd does it to the ultimate dragon.
Yeah, so we just think that like back in the day, 11,000 years ago, the humans just killed a bunch of dragons and took these Dragoon spirits, and then.
Well, Noish doesn't really explain that part. What you know is that effectively there was a massive war 11,000 years ago between the Winglies and the humans. The humans utilized dragons and dragoons. The Winglies utilized barrages, and they had a bloody, massive war that the humans ended up winning. And I don't remember every single cutscene in terms of like when it was explained, but they explained that
there are 2 ways. The first way is you can harvest it from a just freshly killed dragon, and the other way is that the dragon can give it to somebody, For example, Rose got
And
the
Michael.
black one. Yeah, and then the blue dragon was still alive, and the green dragon were still alive, but they gave the spirits to those people.
I think that the Green Dragon Feybrand was so when the game starts out, your character gets attacked by a dragon, right? That's like your introduction to this world, is that your village is being attacked, but you also get attacked by this dragon, which I would argue doesn't really look like a dragon. It almost looks like a giant mantis.
A lot of them don't, if you really look. Yeah.
But it's actually something I kind of like about the interpretation of dragon and draconic beings and them being of different elements. I actually don't mind that he's like a big bug dragon, but yeah, essentially he's a bug dragon, and they tell you he's a dragon right off the bat, so you just take that for granted. But like, he's not the same Jade Dragon, right? Like, I think somehow there's a new dragon and it's Feybrand.
No, so they don't explain that part a whole lot, but what I gather is it's like dragons can go into slumber and they can be awakened. And I think in this case, it was awoken. I don't know that. So I think initially, because they kind of explain it towards the end of the game, where Rose got Michael's trust and he gave her his spirit, and then she was the only person who could control Michael. She gets him to give that, and a few of the others do the same thing. So I think the guy who's the green gets his, Rose gets hers, the blue dragon spirit, I forget the girl's name.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean,
gets hers.
It's not super important. There's 7 of them, right? But they all get it, and then they basically turn the tide of the war, and they supposedly kill all the Winglies, right? And then that ushers in the modern era that this game takes place in, right? So you learn about this stuff, and then what ends up happening, like in the modern era, there's a big war going on in your character's kingdom, like between your character's kingdom and the neighboring kingdom, right? And things escalate. And basically there's, the dragon, which is weird, which the neighboring kingdom is using to overpower yours. And then there's like a giganto being named, what's his name? Kongal, right? So like basically the other side's cheating, right? And then Rose comes back and basically, recognizes that your main character has this Dragoon spirit, this charm he got from his father who died. And your character becomes a Dragoon.
That's the part I don't get. How does it randomly awaken Dark?
Because Dragoons attract each other. Right?
So what? So you need 2 for it to work?
No.
Well, they don't really explain it very much, but she says, "What is that?" And she says that's a Dragoon spirit, right? So him not knowing what it was, he probably couldn't really tap into it.
Yeah.
So he holds the stone and it shines. I'm probably the biggest lore nerd for this one. He holds the stone and it shines, so it shows that the Dragoon spirit recognizes him as a worthy wielder, because anybody, if they hold it, it just looks like a shiny stone. It won't do anything. However, they explain that the way Dragoons fight is by entering insanity, and until you know how to harvest and manifest that insanity, you can't properly control the Dragoon spirit. So when he's put in the life or death situation, and she basically is about to pierce him with her sword and says, awaken. And if it didn't awaken, she was going to impale him and he was going to die. Like, she literally is like, he'd be dead. Yeah. Matter of fact,
I'll take this.
It didn't work. He would have died.
So we're kind of getting into the lore questioning and nitty gritty of this, which I do want to get into, but just for the listener's sake, if you pick up and play this game, it's not nearly this confusing.
No.
So, but basically, chapter 1 is the war, right? And you find out that there was an ancient war, and it basically kind of half explains why there are Dragoons in the first place. Chapter 2 is a pursuit of another silver-haired character, which kicks off an entire debate of this game being basically Final Fantasy VII rehashed, named Lloyd. And
I didn't get that at all.
Yeah, and Lloyd, you find out, started the war. He's causing all kinds of other trouble. You end up pursuing him across, multiple other kingdoms, and all of his misdeeds. And then the third disc, is basically catching up with him, and he awakens this beast called the Divine Dragon. You have to fight that thing off because it's running around destroying cities and stuff. And then the fourth disc is kind of the climactic, end where everything ties in, right? And spoiler, basically the villain from 11,000 years ago is still present in today, and like it's not he's not like, I guess he is immortal. They have a really good explanation for it that ties into the story, but like I think this is where this game excels, because you can really get kind of deep into this stuff, but I think the overall narrative itself works, and it works as a one contained piece, and it doesn't have a lot of like, I think, Deus Exes in the story. I don't know if you guys would agree, but like one of my beefs, if we're gonna, because I know we're gonna bring up Final Fantasy a lot, but like one of my beefs with some of the Final Fantasies is that it just seems like the end of the world comes out of nowhere. Like there's just like some godly power, some godly being, and you just fight God basically at the end of every Final Fantasy game. But this is not what Legend of Dragoon ultimately climaxes into.
Well, I mean, it does, but it's not as much of a surprise.
Yeah. I just like the whole story, like just behind Rose, where like she's quote unquote like the black monster, but really like she's like stopping the end of the world, because like the moon child is supposed to like, you know, bring judgment and basically reset the world, like from creator Soa. But like Rose is basically there, you know, I think it's like what, every 108 years that the moon glows red, and the moon child like descends, I think, or something from the moon.
Yeah, they get born.
They get born, and then basically Rose has been killing. She gets a choker that makes her live like forever. She basically becomes immortal, and so that's why she's been around for 11,000 years. And she's basically every 108 years she comes around and kills the moon child to prevent, you know, God's judgment on the world.
The god of destruction, because there's like a whole mythos behind the beings that were born from like the original world tree or whatever.
Yeah, that's a little bit messy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it does get messy, right? Because like the whole point of the Dragoon spirits was like the dragons not liking the Winglies and then killing the Winglies, but like the blue Dragoon spirit chooses a Wingly twice, and you're like, this is like a thing that shouldn't be happening, like given the nature of what these things are and what they do.
So I will disagree in the way that I don't think it's ever explicitly said that dragons are against the Winglies. I think it's like the Dragoons tame the dragons to fight for them against the Winglies. I think it's whoever is in possession of the Dragoon spirit can control the dragon, and the dragon is basically at the will of its master, more than, oh, I hate Winglies, I'm going to kill Winglies.
It's also got this like chosen one vibe though, right? Because the whole reason that, so like it's highly coincidental, right? That like the only 7 people in the world who can be Dragoons all find each other.
That's part of the story, is on purpose. Dragoons always find each other.
Yeah, but then you find like other random characters who are just using the Dragoon spirits, and you're like, I don't understand how like
well,
it's kind
are
of
you
like
not
a chosen
drawn
one vibe
to them?
But yeah, I guess so. It just feels very convenient at times. I'm just taking a shot.
The world isn't like very big, okay?
So this goes really deep into it. Like, Lloyd has several of the Dragoon spirits, and he gives them not only to, like, he gives 2 to Imperial Sandora, which is the reason the tide of the war shifts. His whole purpose that entire time was to utilize basically he overthrows a country to get possession of Shana and to get possession of the Moon Orb, which is passed down from generation. But I don't know when this fits into the discussion, but I pretty much have all this shit on lockdown if you guys need the lore.
So yeah, but there's like so much of this like side stuff that happens throughout the game, right? Like you have the war, which is your main driver for playing. You have the black monster, which is like your main character Dart's whole reason for journeying is that he wants to go kill this black monster that ruined his childhood, right? And you have this moon child narrative that's going on alongside it, right? And then eventually all these like branching paths converge in like the end, and they wrap it up, I'd say, actually rather neatly, despite the messiness of our discussion here.
As it's a 47-hour experience if you've never played it before, going through all the texts and doing the fights and all that. So it's pretty hard to consolidate the fact that how they unravel this entire tale across the 4 discs in a short segment without being a little messy.
That's why we need an anime adaptation.
Yeah, I'd
Just
be there
like,
for it if they
Give
ever
me
did
like
it.
12-hour-long Legend of Dragoon episodes, one season, one and done. Boom, close it up. Be great.
So
Creation love.
I would watch it. But to get back to the discussion on Dragoon inside the game, in the fights you can transform into a Dragoon, like Dan said, using one of your maximum 5 SP bars. And when you are a Dragoon, your character acts differently. Um, not only is their attack addition different, but also that's when you unlock magic. So your characters can't use their own magic unless you're using an item that does magic damage, unless they transform into a Dragoon, in which case you can get up to whatever it is, 4 spells or 5 spells. And that's based on your Dragoon level, which Dan was talking about, having a Dragoon level that levels as you gain SP. So sometimes in the battles you have to be strategic about when you choose to transform, because you cannot transform back once you transform until you run out of SP. You also cannot guard, use items, or run away as a Dragoon. The only things you can do is attack and use magic.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Yep.
you are beefed up in Dragoon form. Like you're, I mean, I know the percentage are different for each character, but like as a baseline, it's typically like you get like double defense, double magic defense. Usually like around 50 to 60 more, attack. Same thing with like magic attack. So
I'd say you definitely take probably half damage in Dragoon form.
yeah,
I think
most of
that's
them are.
totally
I think
fair.
the only exception might be like Maruz, might be like maybe like 180 or something like that. But yeah, generally when you transform, all your defenses are effectively doubled.
Offense is kind of another story. So like we talked
Yeah.
a little bit about additions and how it's like timing wise. So like one of the things that drives me nuts about the gameplay of this game is like when you are a Dragoon and you're trying to do the regular attack, they call it the Dragoon addition. But like it's like this little piece of light around like a dragon's eyeball, and when you hit the cross or X button, it starts to move around the eyeball, and every time it comes to 12 o'clock, you're supposed to hit the button again, and you're supposed to do that 5 times, and it increases in speed. And it sounds easy,
Incorrect.
but if you okay, well, I don't
You
even
gotta do
really
it
know how
4
to do it.
times, and then the 5th time you gotta do it early because you.
Yeah, it's 5 times. So, but the 5th time is so monstrous. Like
It's
so,
not fair.
I found out back in the day, I think by luck accidentally, or I was just like spamming as a kid and hit it one time, and I was like, whoa, this is a 5th level. And like I remember trying to do it, and I can't even do it now. Like I played for like 10 hours this week, and I pulled it off once.
Yeah.
The way that you are supposed to know is that every time you hit a correct Dragoon edition, a bar fills up on the side. It looks like a Kingdom Hearts HP bar. And there's an extra piece that will tell you that there's another one to hit.
I noticed it this time. That's the first time I've ever looked at it because I'm too busy concentrating on that stupid little piece of light.
Yeah.
Just trying to hit it.
This playthrough, I got, quite a few perfects with it, but like the way I was handling it is that, like, Doug was saying, like the 5th one's kind of bullcrap. What I would do is like once I would hit that 4th one, I'd almost like hit the X button like very soon after that, no matter where the thing was on the screen. And a lot of the time I would get the perfect, but there was sometimes I didn't. So it was like kind of like messing with it.
And like they all have different timings too. Like Maruz takes off like an electric go-kart. Like the thing just goes from 0 to top speed, right? But then Kongol's is like trying to drive a snowplow with the plow down with no snow on the ground.
I feel like Kongo, like I love Kongo, but I feel like he's like easy mode in this game because I believe he has one less addition button that he has to hit in Dragoon form.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
I think
sure.
he only goes for like 3 or something.
Yeah, and on top of that, like his additions too. Like I think his like last one caps out at like 5, and the rest get like 7.
He also gets way less magic spells. Like he only gets like three
Yeah.
magic spells. And they are like damage, more damage, more damage. Those are the three things. And by the way, they're all not good damage because his magic stat's terrible.
Yeah.
Are you saying that people who like Congo probably played green in Magic?
I'm saying that there's what happens when you fight the boss, and then when the boss joins your team, it's an entirely different story. And that's a meme, and the meme never depicts Kongal, but really Kongal is that meme. Like, I can't think of a better example.
I played Kongal in this playthrough, and he was an absolute menace on my team.
I actually liked my playthrough with him too, but he's probably lower tier, I guess.
He's probably the worst character in the game, like, given everything, but, like, I had so much fun with him. I had, like, max speed on him, like, basically, I think I got up to, like, 70 speed, which is, like, base Maru speed, which is not bad. And then, like...
You use Bandit's Ring?
I used Bandit's Ring, I used Bandit Shoes, and then I would also use, like, this. So there's, like, repeatable items in this game, so, like, you can use them in battle, and it would consume it for that battle, but it would come back for, every other battle that you would go through.
Yeah, there's, like, boomerang items.
Yeah, so what I would do is I'd give him, like, the speed up one, I'd give him the power up one, and there was a power down one that you could throw at the enemy, and it even worked on bosses, and it would lower their attack and defense. Dude, I was bone crushing for like 4,000 damage, like late game. I was like, come at me, bro.
Go over to Dan's for some bone crush and chill.
I think, like, Kongal to me is so much fun because, one, I really love his design, but two, like, his boss fights, he basically does additions on you. Like, so you fight him once in a fort town. It's the first time you ever encounter him, and he just looks like he looks for the rest of the game, right? And he has this, like, one animation where he runs up, he grabs both your guys by their head, smacks their heads together a couple times, and then throws them up in the air, spins around, and does like a double back fist and knocks them both back flying.
Dude, it's
and
so
then, like,
epic.
You know what's
it's
better
so
than that?
awesome.
You know what's better than that?
Yeah. His second form, when he's wearing his Giganto armor, he has like these like Wolverine claws, except it has two claws. He pounds the ground. He makes a wall, like a perfectly mortared brick wall, come up behind one of your characters. He throws his little glove mitten thing off, and it skewers the wall beside your character's neck, pinning them. And then he runs up and he just beats on your character until he punches him through a wall. But he has terrible accuracy, so sometimes even though that animation goes off, your character takes no damage and misses.
I was gonna say, I love when he like bashes your characters, throws them, punches them, they go flying, and it's like miss. Yes, he punched you hard enough to send you flying 10 feet, but he missed.
The other funny
Dodge.
animation are like all the magic spells that you can kind of gauge the strength of when something is going to hit you by how many times it zooms in, because like the items you throw are the only magic you get, and basically the mini game there is mash the button as fast as you can, and once you reach certain thresholds it like zooms in to tell you that the power is going up, right? But like some bosses do similar spells with similar animations, and it zooms in once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and you're sitting there like, oh no, this is going to be awful.
Goodbye, Levitz.
I really wish that there was like a Pokemon set, or not set, but like battle animations that you could turn off. Some of your magic spells just take so long to do.
Yeah, they really do.
At the end of the day, the additions turn into battle animations because you get good enough at them. It just is like they
become
have
pretty
to watch
tedious.
It. Yeah, gameplay wise, it kind of falls back a little bit, but yeah. All right, so I just want to ask Doug a couple of questions before we let him go and kind of wrap up this segment. So I mean, as far as like all the RPGs you could have picked off of the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, why is Legend of Dragoon the pick?
So for me, it's more of a personal reason because, again, I'm very nostalgic for this game. And I know there are a lot of people that are nostalgic for this game. This game's got a cult following. For me, it's just the depth of the world. I love the characters. And like you said, there's a lot going on in the story. And I feel like all the characters in the game, even ones introduced later, get pretty good, rounded out storylines by the end of it. You get to see the redemption of some villains. You get to see all these characters kind of grow as they go through their journey. So, and I really think that the game did a phenomenal job with that. And I just liked the storytelling a lot as well. I played a lot of Final Fantasy before I played this game, and for me, just having the action commands and having the additions or something else to do besides hold the X button is for sure was a huge step up for me as far as that goes. I kind of wish it had an active battle system, more like a Final Fantasy VII, where if you don't choose to do something, the enemy can still hit you, so that there's a little more urgency in what you're doing. But I love the additions, and I think that for as simple of a battle system it is, I think it was a lot of fun. I will say this is probably the 5th time I've beaten this game, so like when I come to like maxing out the additions again for like the 5th time, it does get a little tedious, but that's because I've done it so much.
What was the technique you used this time?
Okay, so there's a method of cheese that exists within a lot of games. It's the good old PlayStation tape down your X button on a turbo controller. So what you do,
walk away.
You get the strat for farming is you get 1 Ultimate War God or 2 or 3 if you're rich. You throw them on your characters,
which is an equipment item
that makes your additions 100% successful. Makes the game less fun, but that's not what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to have fun. So you hook this to your character. You take them into the Death Frontier, where in certain stages of this game, it's random encounter where as you're running, your arrow goes from blue to yellow to red, and when you get red, you're going to get an encounter. So in certain parts of the world, there are overworld enemies that if they touch you, like in Paper Mario, you go into a battle. So you go to Death Frontier, you stand there, you tape down your X button, you put on the Ultimate War God, and literally your characters will just kill everything. You have pretty much there might be a poison status that'll affect you, so you should check it on your game every once in a while. But pretty much just tape down your X button, come back, switch your edition, and you can just AFK, that kind of thing. It's like the Midgar Zolom with your X button taped on a turbo controller all over again.
Yeah, and there's like a heal station like pretty close by, like with because it's in a desert. There's like an oasis, so like it's a really good grinding spot.
When
I like
finished
that whole
grinding,
like, microwave it, like set it and forget it type of cheese that used to exist on the PlayStation.
So when I did it, when I got to that section, I grinded off my additions, and I finished the game or finished the grinding with like 20-something thousand gold. So I would have, if I stayed there and did a little bit more, I would have gotten even more. Over the course of the game, I probably ended up with somewhere in the realm of 45 to 50,000, which is enough to buy some legendary items. So it's a you can cheese the crap out of it if you want to.
Unfortunately, if you don't do that, leveling up your characters takes way too long on regular enemies. They wanted you to level up on like boss fights, but like farming money and experience in this game is a big grind.
Yeah.
If you're not using the Death Frontier cheese.
Yeah, that's why I said like, at least for like a first playthrough, definitely stick to 3 characters. Because if you're like you're just going around using whoever, like your characters are severely gonna be like not even just like level wise, but like addition levels are gonna like severely fall behind. Because then now you're gonna need to grind if you want to do any sort of real damage.
Yeah, this is definitely the type of game where you pick a party and you stick with it. It's not like a Chrono Trigger or like a Final Fantasy X where it's beneficial to use all or most of your party members.
Yeah, I mean, is it doable? Yeah, it's just very grindy.
Yeah.
The best game that I can think of for using anybody is like Chrono Cross, because your level is literally based on the amount of bosses you beat. You get like a star level, and that's what determines how powerful your characters are. And they kind of tried to do something like this by making everybody gain experience from bosses, but anybody that isn't in your party in this game gets half experience, but they don't level up their additions, they don't level up their Dragoon spirit, they don't
they fall
really
way
level up.
behind. Way behind.
So yeah, like everybody else is saying, you pick a party and you stick with it, and if you're going to play it for the first time, this is one of the most valuable pieces of information that you can pull, because I would have loved to have used more characters, but after disc 1, I realized that people are going to fall real far behind on additions. So I ended up picking just the 2 characters I wanted to use, and that was it.
My first ever playthrough, I did Levitz Albert and Rose,
Same. That was mine too.
which is actually a really good team.
I call that the default team.
Yeah, you get the
Because of,
damage
like-
mitigation from Rose Storm. You get Astral Drain to heal yourself. It's pretty solid combo.
I used Maru and
yeah.
Albert.
I actually used Maru and Miranda or Shauna for my first ever time beating this game because
it's like magic heavy.
yeah, well, so Shauna is the character that remember we mentioned doesn't get additions. She uses
Swipe
a bow,
left,
and like it's super lame when you first get her because like you're first playing this game and you're having fun doing additions, and then like you get Shauna and you don't even get a chance. She just shoots the bow and hits for whatever damage she hits for. It's very lame. But then like her Dragoon spells are so broken. Like her final spell is like heavy damage to all and heal your party 100%. Like, and it's just so ridiculous. And on top of that, she just doesn't take damage from magic, and neither does Maru. And somewhere like 3/4 of the way through the game, bosses and major enemies just stop using regular attacks. They all start to use magic. So I completely bodied that final boss the first time I ever fought it because my party was so.
Let me tell you
so
about
magic dense.
Let me tell you about Magician Faust.
Oh, dude, he's
Yeah.
a monster.
If you go into that fight without a legendary cast,
super boss. Yeah.
See, that's so annoying
yeah.
to me.
He's a gear check.
That's not good enough. I understand the game is not exceptionally deep in its combat system, and the real way to make something difficult in this game is to either or and do more HP and more damage. Like that's the only way to make the enemies stronger. It's not great design to have an enemy that's almost unkillable unless you grind up these legendary casks. Because you can't really level up unless you cheese the Death Frontier. What's the max level in this game? 60?
60.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're not. How much time are you going to have to spend to either farm the money or farm the experience just to get a shot at this guy? It
I can
deterred
tell
me so
you.
bad from wanting to do it.
I can tell you, I used the speed up feature handily, so I didn't spend this much
I
time.
didn't
But
have
my
it.
in-game timer I leveled every edition, I leveled every single character, not to 60. They were like in their 30s or 40s, and I got all the editions up, all the Dragoons up, 60 hours and something minutes, and I had 3 legendary casks to go fight Faust with. And
Just saying that Tears of the Kingdom is like 300-400 hours or some crap like that to 100%. Just saying.
Yes,
It
but
doesn't
Tears of
sound
the
that bad.
Kingdom is a huge sandbox game. It's not even a comparison.
I think Breath of the Wild was nearly as bad. Wasn't that one like 200 hours or something like that?
It was a lot.
Just saying. It's 60 hours sounds like a pretty low commitment, but games aren't as it's not nearly as entertaining, I think.
Mhm.
But anyway, all right, Doug. Last question before we move on to our review. Why should we consider Legend of Dragoon a winner in one of the cups of the Cable Club?
I love this game. I really do. I think it really portrays where it came from very well. As we said, it's like a playable 90s anime. It was a product of its times. You have all the familiar tropes, all that stuff, and while it might be overplayed and overdone, I don't feel like back then it was. I feel like that was just the norm. That was that kind of environment we were used to. And when I play through it now, it's kind of like, it's almost cringeworthy, but also chuckle-worthy, where how they portray some of the things and some of the lines they have are really funny, and I like how that is. I also think it's just overall worth a play for anybody in the modern era. See where you came from, and as much as I love this game, I know there are some flaws with it, and I can totally think of how, with modern sensitivities, we could make the game better with modern things that we do with games to improve quality of life for players. So I would say I want enough people to play this because this game, in my opinion, deserves the remake treatment or at least the anime treatment. So Because if it doesn't win at one of the leagues, it won't get an anime adaptation. That's on you, Don. I'm putting that on.
I'll make sure
blood
it
is your
happens
hands. Oh, I've been in this call for how long? We've been talking for how long? And I still feel like I haven't scratched the surface of like all the things about this game. And
it's those 60-hour games back in this era.
Well, just like the Japanese version apparently was significantly more difficult. Like all these random details, like Rose's astral drain when she goes up in the air and you see that black liquid dripping from her. In the Japanese version, it's red, and they're like, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't have a woman float in the sky, have a bunch of red drip out from between her legs, and then have her drain the souls of her enemies." It's great. Like there's so much to this game.
This is coming full circle to what I was saying about the tropes of the time. And
It's
just kind of have to look.
There's so much stuff in this game.
I got one quick question for you, Doug.
What's that?
Favorite playable character?
Favorite playable character?
Why is it Dark?
Why is it Levitz?
Yeah, and
why? Who's the coolest character, and why is it Levitz? Like we didn't even talk about the bromance, like that right there. Like
Levitz is Dark's true love interest.
Yeah,
never mind.
He
Shayna.
is the bro.
Yeah,
I do want to mention this. So like when
He's
I was
so upset.
When I was a
Levitz
kid,
dies. He only knew Levitz for like 3 days.
No, it's longer than that. It's
all right. 4 days. Seriously,
it's assumed. But so that's another thing in this game. You can't really tell about time because if you remember, there's a scene where they go to fight the Divine Dragon, right? And they're on their way back, and they hear that the Queen had heard the silence of the dragon 7 days prior. That the dragon had stopped crying for 7 days. So they were gone in the scene where you're going there for at least a week and a half, 2 weeks. So the passage of time is not perfectly linear in this game. Like it's hard. They've probably been together for a few months or like as long as it takes to walk across this landscape fighting this battle. So they've known each other for a little bit longer.
I take for granted that Dark doesn't grow into a giant and walk across the top of the mountains like.
And I feel like as a man, you have to understand that if this dude's got your back in battle, that he's your bro. But I wanted to bring this one last point up with Levitz. So when I was a kid, it like almost brought me to tears when Levitz died because like as a young guy, I was like, oh man, what would happen if my bro died? Like, well, that would be so like I'm just picturing how devastating that would feel. And I completely forgot this detail. So at the end of the game, after you complete the final battle, you get a clip of like a "where are they now" kind of thing. So before Levitz dies, they like fist bump like, hey, let's get a drink after all this is over. So Levitz Dark goes and visits Levitz's mother. He pours 2 drinks, puts one down by the picture of Levitz, and they're near the window that they had gone out to stare at the castle in the opening game, which was Levitz's treasure. He finishes his drink, puts it down next to Levitz's glass, and leaves. And to me, that was like a big like manly get back up in there, little tear. Like it was just. That promise kept to a friend at the end of a journey, because like I imagine if I ever made a promise to any of my friends like that, I would have to keep it, and that was.
I mean, you get the sense that Levitz didn't have a lot of friends, right? Like his mother was so happy when he brought everybody over, and like even King Albert was like, "Hey, you've got a friend. That's nice." Like, so you can stop hanging around here all the time.
Levitz is a bro. Levitz is a Chad.
So
Levitz Slambert.
Yeah, his last name is Slambert. It's pretty great.
I mean, this is like a very minor detail, but like the cutscene where he dies and it shows like the end screen where like you get the experience. The fact that like his doesn't go up and the other 2 are, that also tugs at the heart too. You're like, no.
Oh, it's so brutal. Well, he's dead. He doesn't get experience.
Yeah, the battle ends and it doesn't go straight to the EXP screen, and you're like, oh, where's all my stuff? And then they wait until they kill him, and then it goes to the EXP screen. They don't give him EXP.
It just like further drives the point that he died.
Oh yeah, he died.
There's one random detail I wanted.
He's not getting experience. He's gone.
He's dead.
He's dead. He's gone, huh?
So no angel prayer or whatever it is for him.
So there was one little detail too I wanted to mention that happened to me in this playthrough. So at the very end, when you deliver the final blow to the final boss, if you're in normal form or or whatever you're doing, Dart will turn into the Divine Dragoon, right? And he'll use Divine Dragon Cannon to finish off the final boss.
Big beam, big
So
Kamehameha wave.
I went Dragoon and I finished the boss with the Divine Dragon Cannon, and what ends up happening is the game lags a little bit, and then it goes right back into the animation, so he could say Divine Dragon Cannon at once, then you Divine Dragon Cannon, double tap that bitch.
He's following the rules of Zombieland.
Listen, you survived 11,000 years in one war. You're getting the double tap.
Yeah, that happened to me too. I used Divine Dragon Cannon, and it was the last hit on the boss. I just got lucky, and he did it twice.
The only reason you made it this far is because Zeke didn't double tap, and I'm making sure to double tap.
Yeah. Dude, there's a lot to talk about. I'm sorry if this is going on too long. I love this.
It's okay.
It's all good.
It's a long game. So, anyway, we're gonna let you go now, and we're gonna move over to our review.
All right,
Ready
fellas.
to goon, fellas.
Ready to start gooning.
Practice safe.
Thanks for coming on, Doug. Appreciate
Later,
it,
guys. Night.
See ya.
Alrighty, before we move on to our review, this is the part of the show that if you've made it this far, good on you. Try hitting that like button if you're watching us on YouTube. Really gets us jazzed to keep doing this. Or leave a comment that's even better. We really like to interact with new folks. You could also, if you're listening to us on a platform, leave us a kind rating and review. That one gets me in particular quite jazzed to keep doing this show.
Super jazzed.
Yes. And the more subs we get, the more bonus episodes we can do. So you can also follow us on Facebook. That's where we do news and updates and a few things Cable Clubby over there as well. All right, and now we'll get into our review. Steve, I know you've got a lot to say about this one because we were kind of talking before the episode. So you can start.
You want me to start?
Yep, go ahead. I'm just going to
Okay. So I know that you guys have a very big soft spot for this game, considering that you have nostalgia for it. I ended up playing and finishing this game within a month. I started earlier than when I finished Paper Mario. I unfortunately don't echo a lot of the sentiments because I don't have a huge experience with this game as a kid. So I got to see it for exactly how it is in the modern time. I didn't play it back when it was brand new. Unfortunately for me, the best part of the game is the story, and the second best part of the game is the world and atmosphere and the graphics, and they bring the world together really nicely.
Yeah.
The presentation in this game is wonderful. They have really great cutscenes. They have awesome voice acting for the time. Final Fantasy didn't have any voice acting, so it was a surprise to me. And I was pleasantly surprised with the presentation. The music is pretty good. Some songs are memorable, some songs aren't. I do wish that the audio in the game followed more of a cohesive theme. Some of the things felt a little dilapidated. Like, for example, going into a menu having its own music, that was kind of a really weird choice.
It is weird, but that particular theme slaps, in my opinion.
I'm not saying the theme was bad, but it was really weird.
It is
and
weird.
It kind of pulled me out of the game a little bit.
Yeah.
And the thing that's the worst offender about it is that because it had to load an audio track, going into this main menu, which you go into all the time, takes extra long because now there's extra loading of a new track. That was a really weird choice.
Did you guys catch the song in the beginning? If you still believe, it's got lyrics and stuff. There's actual singing in it.
It's like they play a guitar solo and they start it right in the before you select your save file or whatever.
Yeah, I don't remember if I ever sat through this as a kid, but I turned my PlayStation 2 on this past week and let the beginning roll, and I was just doing something else, and it goes from that menu to where you pick your file into like an actual intro movie with a song. And I didn't realize that this song was just written for this game. It's like a real song with real lyrics, and you didn't see it as much back then. Like, I feel like other notable examples of this were things like Otherworld from Final Fantasy X, right, where it's like an actual like lyrically written song, and it's decent.
Yeah, Final Fantasy X had, I think, 2 songs with lyrics that were specifically written for the game.
I
think what I mean to say is lyrics. Like, not a lot of games back then had songs with lyrics. Plenty of them had songs that were made just for the game, but like this one felt like something you could have heard elsewhere.
Yeah, the Cynthia Knight had one in the credits too. It was called
really?
I Am the Wind. Yeah, I think it was called.
Oh, I need to look that up. Interesting.
So that's kind of where the buck stops for me. Like, those are really great aspects of the game. Unfortunately, where do I start? The Dragoon transformations are a huge letdown after the middle part of the game because it's just so shallow. The battle system is incredibly shallow, incredibly non-customizable. I got very, very tired of playing the battles, and usually that's my favorite part of an RPG. Like, a lot of people like to say, oh, the additions make it really exciting, but at the end of the day, they are so samey, and you end up getting that final edition, and that's all you do. And even then, the timing is tough because you have like 7 frames in battle. It's an awful frame rate to do some kind of a timing thing. And then the counters on top of that, like some of them, if you're not ready to be countered, you're never going to hit it.
Yeah, there's this one that like Haschel does, Hex Hammer. If you get countered, you just get countered. Like there's just no I have yet to beat that counter and be able to complete the addition.
Yeah, some of them
very frustrating.
Yeah, some of them are really unreasonable.
And like Paper Mario came out, I think, not long after, or was it before?
1 year after.
Yeah. So, well, this one came out in December, but like there's just so much and like even Mario RPG, because like Doug mentioned, you know, one of the guys from that game worked on this, right? Like Mario RPG has a lot of different action commands. So I think one of the things that bothers me about the action commands in this game is that they're all kind of just tap the X button at different intervals, and I kind of wish there were other mini games associated with different attacks. And I kind of wish the additions did different things. Like, why couldn't there have been additions that were fire element, or additions that were wind element, or additions that, you know, poisoned enemies, or additions that stunned enemies? Like, I don't really get why they chose not to make them anything other than raw damage and, let's just face it, basically MP accumulation, right? That's kind of what the Dragoons come down to.
I think that would have been a better step in the right direction. Like, I feel like what you were saying, like they all do like different things. I feel like you should, when you hit the attack button, maybe a list comes up and you can actually pick what addition you want to do. And then like maybe one could stun or something, or maybe I need a little more SP, so I'm going to use Madness Hero. The fact that you're like stuck with just this one addition until you change it, like, I don't know. I felt
that change that you just said, Dan, would take this game from like a B for me to an S game.
Yeah.
Just having different, just having
just
the ability
having
to pick
options.
what edition you want to fight. Yeah, well, yeah, because that's it. Because characters don't even have magic, unless
it's
they
tied
are...
to your Dragoon stage, and that's such a terrible choice.
And it is because a mage in Final Fantasy has damage magic, but even the damage magic has nuance, right? Like it's thunder, it's water, it's fire, it's ice, and there's different things that go along with that, like in terms of enemy weaknesses and whatever. But like your Dragoon magic, you occasionally run across an enemy that has weakness and resistance, but like your character doesn't have a choice of elements. Like if you Dart has to stay in your party, so you're always going to have fire element because he's fire element, which sucks.
Yeah.
And then like his magic is like damage to all, more damage, even more damage, and that's like it. Like, because even the spells don't do anything. They don't put enemies to sleep. They don't have like, I mean, some of them do. I guess. Like, I think Rose's magic is probably the most fleshed out, where like she has like a drain spell, she has like a kill all minor enemies spell, like it's not much really.
No.
Yeah, for the game to have like Dragoon in the name, I felt like they really slept on the Dragoon part of the game. It's just like you were saying, like a lot of the time, it's like I feel like the Dragoon, like really, it falls off like mid to late game. It's like not even worth using because not only do a lot of bosses like use like dragon block staff or whatever, or insta kill you when you turn into a Dragoon. At the like eventually your additions start outscaling the Dragoon edition, which in my opinion that's a really crappy feeling because it's like when you turn into a Dragoon, you're supposed to feel all beefy and almighty, and the fact that like your human form ends up just outscaling it like damage wise, I feel like is a huge flaw. And like yeah, you get like more defenses and whatnot, which is good, but again, like sometimes it's like, especially if it's like your first time playing through the game, like say fighting Lloyd for example, like if you hit the special button and you all turn into Dragoons, that's essentially a game over.
Yeah, like you're kind of screwed, but they do make a point to tell you that, I think.
Well, the fact that you can't use items as a Dragoon is abysmally ridiculous.
I feel like they should have at least let you revert.
Revert, yeah, items too. I don't know. Like you feel so restricted as a Dragoon.
So they like tried to tie this whole thing into like, oh, there's this berserker state that your character enters, and that's why they're mildly not controllable. But like, I don't buy that for the rest of the story. Like, it just doesn't tie into the story other than Rose being the black monster, which, I guess she goes into a berserk state when she becomes the black monster, but I don't know why they even had to do that. Like, they had in-story reasons for why she would have killed the Moonchild and everybody around her. Like, basically, the Moonchild forms a cult every time it comes out. So she kills everyone who has contact with it. Like, it makes sense. It makes perfectly logical sense that if you don't want the world to end, this is what you have to do. Like, and it's just, I get that. Like, the whole, like, berserker form thing just doesn't really jive. I feel like. So I didn't think it was necessary. Plus, the characters demonstrate being able to clearly have thoughts and dialogue in Dragoon form. They're not like Hulk smash.
Oh, yeah, no. Also, the inventory space really had me frustrated these last couple of weeks.
Steve,
like,
and
why?
Inventory. Yeah.
Why?
No, listen. The buying items. Okay? I don't like when any game ever makes you have to buy items one at a time. Like, why can't I buy 5 potions right now? Why do I have to buy one potion, one potion, one potion, one potion, one potion?
Yeah.
Like, why can't I just buy
let's
5
just
potions?
compare it to Final Fantasy, any of them, any single one, or any
Final
other
Fantasy
RPG I've ever bought.
Yeah, it has
your
to come up a
items
lot.
stack to like 99.
Yeah.
Like, you could buy 99 potions and it doesn't. This game, every single potion you have takes 1 out of your 32 spots.
And
then they're expecting you to have some backup of healing items and to have all these different magic items that you find everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's just, you don't have enough room for nearly anything. Like, I tried to keep 3 revives, 3 single heals, and 3 full heals, and that's 1/3 of my inventory.
plus all the boomerang items.
Yeah,
There's
I was gonna about to mention that too, because like the repeatable items, if you actually get a lot of them or most of them, that's like 33% of your inventory. There's like 10 or 11 of them.
I don't think you can even sell them, right? Like,
No, you can, but
Okay.
like the way
it feels wrong.
it does
feels
feel wrong
to
because
sell.
it's like you feel like you should have this because you never know. Like, well, this could be useful somewhere, so it's like you just hold on to it. But like, yeah, if you end up collecting most of them, like I said, it's like 33 of your inventory is essentially gone. So now you're only working with like 22 spaces.
Yeah, like, the only reason, there's 2 main reasons that I kept playing. The first one is because you guys love it so much, and the second one was the story. The gameplay falls extremely flat for me, and I would not recommend to somebody that is iffy on JRPGs or somebody that has no real reason to go to it in general. I just don't think that the game is strong enough for the story alone, the gameplay.
Yeah.
The there's a tipping point when you get the final edition and it's fully leveled up that you're really just kind of playing, because by then you're usually level 5 Dragoon too.
Yeah.
Like, you're basically just playing to get through the story, and that doesn't feel good at times, especially when you couple it with random encounters, which I'm not a fan of. I don't like random encounters. I think this game gets a little bit of a pass on that because the game follows the rule where it has to turn your little like indicator from blue to yellow to red, so it's not going to be like, because sometimes if you play like thinking Final Fantasy VI, you literally take 2 steps and there's another fight sometimes.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
stuff like that doesn't happen, but it is like all the fights.
Well, they do
end up
have the
being
items
so
that
samey.
allow, it's like repel in Pokemon, you can run and not get encounters, but the problem is they each take up one of your inventory spots.
Yeah, so I end up buying 8 charm potions to go
It's
into it.
so
That's 33% of your inventory.
frustrating. Why would they put a cap on your items like that? You get 255 equipment slots, but not regular items. Why would they
Yeah.
do
I almost
that?
wish it was the other way around.
I know, because you
Why
don't
do I
even need to buy
3,
gear.
4 broadswords. I don't like.
You don't even need to buy gear for anybody except your 3 main party
Yeah.
members.
The equipment was another space where it didn't fall quite as flat, and I'd say it's probably equally as guilty in some of the Final Fantasy games, but like at least some of the equipment did stuff, like was elemental damage or did fear or something like that. So
Yeah, and I mean,
but
they have...
you don't keep. It's not the kind of game where you keep your previous weapons and switch them sometimes. Like usually,
no, your
even if
accessories you
yeah.
will, and some of your armors you do, but
Yeah.
your weapons, no.
Yeah, it's like
And
strict,
one of the
strict
other
upgrades,
things is like
linear upgrades.
Yeah.
they have like 9 different status effect problems that, for one, you can hardly inflict on your opponents. It feels so one-sided. But the other thing is there's like 3 different healing items that take away certain statuses, and I never remembered which ones were which,
It's
so
like
I had to
body
read
purifier,
it every time.
mind purifier, and then what was the last one?
It was like petrification, right?
Yeah,
I
it was
never.
like an anti-petrify
Yeah, I
item.
never got petrified. I still don't know what enemy actually does that.
But my point is that because these items are, it's like depetrify is what it's called.
Yeah.
The fact that these items take up the inventory spaces, 1 each, you kind of want like 2 of each of them just in case you run into something. So there's another like 6 spaces that are taken just for these items that you never even use.
Yeah.
So like it's just incredibly frustrating because this game is littered huge amounts of treasure chests, and they all have magic items that I never wanted to even use. But every time I open a chest because I'm looking for equipment, it's like, oh, here's a mind purifier. Like, well, I already have fucking 4 of those.
Yeah,
Like,
it does.
and-
It really does make using like a magic-based team harder, especially if you're trying to keep like a bunch of restoration items. Because, like I said, like if you're getting all like the boomerang items and then you have a bunch of restoration items, it's just like, where do you have like the space to have all these magic attack items too? You don't.
No, the game became fairly frustrating for me, but I did push through to see it through the end because of the story, and I was already invested. Story and presentation, A+, S tier, great. The rest of that game, I just had a really hard time justifying my time spent on it.
Yeah.
You guys having nostalgia going back to it is a perfectly reasonable, perfectly reasonable to go back and play. Like, I would go back and play some bad games from my past just to enjoy them as what they were to me and how important they were.
Whoa.
But for new people, I would not recommend.
Easy there.
He's calling it a bad game.
He said bad.
I mean, yeah.
It's not worth the time.
Yeah, like I played it with you guys, these past 2 weeks, and I would say nostalgia is a big factor. Like, this game did age pretty poorly, in my opinion. Like, the additions are great. I think they're fun, but at the end of the day, like, you guys both said, once you get that final edition, that's basically what you're doing until you finish the game. And, they do get, samey and boring after a while. Like, it almost is like, okay, I'd rather just attack at this point and not have to do this.
And there's no reason to use the Dragoon forms past a certain point.
Yeah,
you're just doing so much less damage. Like,
yeah, like the final editions just do so much damage that like they just get outpaced. Really, like the Dragoon forms get outpaced really hard in the damage department.
Like there's some Dragoon spells that heal that are really good. Like
Yeah, that's how I healed.
yeah,
I used Maru's healing.
heal all is
But
not
like
very common in this game, but
that's
some
another
Dragoons are.
problem though. So like say like you brought up a good point with like, Maru being able to heal. Okay, I want to be able to pop in my Dragoon form, heal, and then maybe pop back out. And
No, you
then
have to time
you
your
can't do
heals, and
that. So once
that's gonna
once you
be it.
pop in there, because you only need to heal once, because the heal's pretty good. So like now you're committed to being a Dragoon for 5 turns because you wanted to a 1 turn AOE heal.
That actually makes a lot of sense because I got best at doing Maru's Dragon edition back in the day. I remember being able to perfect that like every time. And
Yeah.
that's probably why. Because every time I needed to heal, I had to go into Dragoon form for her, and then I had to blow 4 turns on just attacking, like regular attacking.
It's just it feels like such a waste of your SP gauge. Like
Oh, hold on. There's the MP too, right? And one of the problems there is that no character gets more MP than the others.
yeah,
Like they all have the same MP.
I used the thing that doubles your MP on Maru.
What is that?
There's an accessory that doubles your MP or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, but like at the end of the day, this game, like if you really think about it, it's pretty bare bones. I would almost say it's worse than Dragon Quest in some ways,
They should have just made an anime.
because the reason why
You
I
know why
say
it's
that,
not worse than Dragon Quest? Because it has a story. That's
Yeah.
Dragon Quest problem.
well, the reason why I say that, and Steve brought up a good point, is like with the status effects. It's like it's mainly just the enemies use it on you. You really can't like turn around and use it on them. At least in the Dragon Quest games, it's like there's so many abilities where you can like petrify the enemy, like paralyze or stun them. And a lot of times you have to use those against bosses because they work against bosses. And
Status
Um,
effects? Those are
Well,
terrible.
so some editions do status effects, but they're really rare.
do they? I don't think so.
Nope.
Yeah,
It's tied to
it's
the
an equipment.
weapon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's tied to the weapon. That's one of the problems with that system.
But well, yeah,
Oh.
it's just like, and I consider Dragon Quest to be very bare bones, but like even to like consider Legend Dragoon to be like a step even below Dragon Quest, that's really saying something.
In gameplay, it's pretty brutal. Like
Yeah,
with that, I will certainly agree there, and I like going back and visiting this game from time to time because I like the stories, I like the characters, I like the escalation of it enough. I don't usually complete it. Like I beat it I think last year, and that was the second time that I've ever beaten the game all the way through. I've never beaten Magician Faust, like never cared enough to go get all the Stardust, just because that I think what you guys are saying about the battle system, really, I feel it.
yeah,
Like it's just you don't get a lot of options. There's like no options.
yeah. It's like pure nostalgic factor. Like if I ever have like an inkling to like play this game, it's probably because of my nostalgia. And there's been times where like I've went through this game and I've stopped like halfway. There's been multiple playthroughs where I've done that because
Yeah.
I just get bored.
You just get your fill.
Yeah.
And it is cool. It has a vibe, and the vibe's really cool. But you feel it for like 2 discs, and you're like, all right,
Yeah,
that's all I need.
right, exactly. It's like you pretty much, seen what the game has to offer at that point. Like obviously there's harder editions, but like,
I need Dart to yell explosion a couple times. I need some volcanoes in my life.
I wish you could turn that off too.
I do think they have a good base for Legend of Dragoon. I think they could do so much with it. Whether they do like a prequel or like a remake. Like
Yeah, if they remade the game and they fixed some of these issues, which I know they would if they remade it, I would play again. The story was great, but like they really need to polish
Yeah.
some of the stuff and flesh out some of this combat
Yeah,
stuff.
100%. Like I said, good base, but like can definitely be improved upon.
I do want to highlight though that story and that general like visual and character design. I just really feel this world that they built. I think it hits you hard, in the beginning when they present you with, going back to your simple village and getting attacked by that dragon, and setting the stage for that aggression, basically talking about your character as a mercenary, doesn't really care that much about the war, but cares about this vengeance quest that he's on and the people he loves, right? But generally stays out of it until he meets Levitz and sees how horrific things are getting, and I think I think like how the story builds up and just throws all this stuff at you, you don't know exactly why it's there, and then really ties it up in the end, I think is something that you really don't get as much with other RPGs. Like, I think every character in this game is fairly significant.
Yeah. I know I really love the character development in this game. Maybe aside from Shauna, because like a lot of the time she's like handicapped and it's just like you got to go like save her or something. But like even then, like you find out like she's like the Moonchild, so she's pretty significant in her own way. But I do like the segments in the game. Like I don't remember what the area is called. It's like the underwater area, like one of the last areas you go to, and you got to like answer like a bunch of questions and stuff. It's like it's all about like character development and stuff like that. And then the part on the moon where like it further goes into like character development where like your characters like split up, and then like Haschel ends up fighting Claire, like her daughter, which I think is Dart's mother, which Haschel is like the grandfather. It's not like specifically mentioned, but that it's implied that like Haschel is the grandfather of Dart.
Yeah, is Dart's grandfather.
Yeah, I kind of would prefer that stuff had been like littered out through the game a little bit more instead of just like thrown at you at the end there.
Yeah, no, I definitely
that would have been a better choice. And the only two characters that I would say that didn't like fill a huge storyline were like Miranda's kind of like left off after you are done at the Crystal Palace and the Divine Dragon. She just kind of tags along, and then the other one is I don't know. I feel like Haschel's not like extremely well fleshed out. They get over his stuff real quick. Like he talks about the thing that happened between him and his daughter, and then that's pretty much it.
There's also the whole bandit guy too for him.
Yeah, I guess what I mean is that it all kind of comes to an end really early.
Yeah.
But then it feels like he's just like with you to be with you, and Maru gets a lot, Dart gets a lot, Rose gets a lot, Congo gets a fair amount,
Albert gets a lot.
Yeah.
Congo gets a surprising amount for being such a late entry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so I think that's all I wanted to say about it.
Yeah. We all kind of like chimed in.
Yeah. All right. You guys want to rate this thing?
Let's do it.
Alrighty, so this is the part of the show where we actually enter our games into the league. So if you watched our anniversary episode, you kind of know how this works. We are going to fill each level of our league with 5 games, and as we fill up the levels, we're going to push games up through the ranks, up through the ladder, or perhaps a new game will be so good that it starts at the top of the ladder. But we have one rung, or one cup, as we call them. We're a Pokemon-scented podcast. So the cups are in the style of Pokemon Stadium, starting with Apricorn, and they'll go Pokeball, Great Ball, Ultra Ball, and Master Ball. And this is because we know that not all games are created equal. Some of them are games like this one that people like because they like them for nostalgic or maybe qualitative reasons, and not necessarily, that they're the best games ever, right? And we don't want those games to go up against the absolute masterclass, tippity top tier games, because then there'd be a clear winner. Someone would just windmill slam Super Mario World and we'd be done with this league, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So at the end of this league, we will award something to each of the cups and probably some ancillary awards, and we'll give out prizes accordingly, as well as there will be a full league winner too. So, but for now, we have 3 games in there, which were the 3 games that we picked, and we have Doug's game that we're entering into the league today. As I said, we only have 1 cup currently. This will be game number 4. So it's going to go right into the Apricorn League. Will it stay there? I don't know. We have 21 more games to go, fellas, this year.
It's going to be an exciting year.
When we start pushing things up, then you'll see the fireworks start to fly.
Oh,
We'll
yeah.
start yelling at each other about which game's supposed to move up. All right, so we will go ahead and get into our next game pick. This next game was submitted by a longtime community member, Danko Misty. You've heard her. She comments. We read her answers. She has picked for us a game in a series that I have never beaten a single installment of. A game in a series that I have acknowledged is a good series, and that it's a me problem on this podcast several times that I've never beaten a single entry in this series. She's picked a pretty low lift one because it's for the Game Boy. And I want to mention that this is the second game for the Game Boy that we're playing in this league, only 5 games in. We only played one Game Boy game last year.
I know. That's good stuff.
Right? Isn't that great? I love the I love the diversity. I feel like we spent so long on PlayStation 1 last year.
Yeah, we did. We did have a good grind on the PlayStation last year.
But we're kind of hopping around here. It's been good stuff. This game is a 2-part version game, kind of like Pokemon was, but unlike Gold, Silver, Crystal, we're going to treat it a little bit differently because this game is actually different from its brother or sister counterpart, whatever you want to call the other version. This game is The Legend of Zelda: Oracle of Ages.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Have you guys played this one?
I've played a lot through seasons. I've never played through ages, so it'll be
All right,
fun.
so for anybody that doesn't know, in this 2-part game, there is a large difference. The first one is that Oracle of Seasons, not only through, you could tell, the title, it has like a seasonal-based world, using the 4 seasons, but it is a much more combat-oriented Zelda game. Oracle of Ages instead goes through time instead of the seasons, and it's a lot more dungeon-focused puzzle game. So this one that Danko Misty has picked is a lot more of like, for lack of a better example, kind of like Goof Troop on the Super Nintendo, where it's like a puzzle-y kind of game,
Goof Troop.
more than a combat one. Goof Troop's amazing.
It is. It's like Zelda. I don't know if the reverse is true. Anyway, so if you're listening, hop in our Discord, play along with us for these next 2 weeks, and come join us on the 20th with Danko Misty to talk about Oracle of Ages. But for now, guys, game over.
Game over.
Game over.